On Friday, November 8th, 23-year-old Hana Kobayashi missed her connecting flight from LAX to New York, which the investigation determined was intentional.
The Kobayashi family says LAPD's public announcement that Hana had purposely missed her flight caught them off guard.
The way that it kind of seems like it's bending is that she did it on purpose, and she's just going out and about to do her own thing. But to get her age wrong after that, it's very discouraging.
Sydney says she continues to believe that Hana is in danger. One reason is because even if she decided to go off the grid, Hana would have reached out after her father, who spent 13 days looking for her in Los Angeles, committed suicide.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head,
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. What do you think is the number one clue we all missed in this case? For the first time, the actual Venmo payments made by the 31-year-old aspiring photographer have been revealed. The payment to Jonathan Taylor is interesting. Superficially, it appears to be a misspelling of the name Jonathan, although there are instances where the Hebrew version, Jonathan, is used. So there is a real name that is spelt that way. But I can't help feeling the name is a made-up name. And who is Veronica Almendarez? Other texts have recently been revealed in the format they were sent as well, such as this one. Now, I believe it was Hannah's aunt who said that she was inclined to communicate with emojis. She seldom sent any messages without them. And while this may be true, it may be less of a factor during an emergency or crisis situation. I do think there's a mismatch in the gravity of tricked pretty much. These are supposedly her words, where she says, I got tricked pretty much into giving away all my funds. That is minimizing language, right? And that is another way of saying, I was misled, but would you say it in such a light-hearted way? I don't think many people would minimize losing all their money while traveling with the words trick pretty much. They would use scammed or a more pejorative term. And then what about this text message sent on Monday at 5:29 a.m.? Hi loves, I just finished a very intense spiritual awakening. No emoji. I'm charging my phone and heading back to the airport to get to New York City. I might need some help getting there. It's a long story. I'll keep you posted. And then she also writes, I think I still have my hotel room. No emojis. And so the question is, are these texts also suspect, or were they sent by her? Now, the above text is likely what has been fueling the theory that Hannah joined a cult, which I find wildly imaginative. But of course, as a young person given to impulsivity, it's not impossible. Bear in mind, she went to the Grove Mall and seemed to attend a Nike event spontaneously and impulsively as well. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. Now, all of this moving about, especially via public transport, heightened her chances of encountering an unsavory character. Just look at these 7 different moments essentially shown by the Daily Mail. Landing at LAX, going to the bookstore, returning to LAX, then speaking to a ticketing agent, after going to the Nike Grove store, and then everything that followed. In this analysis, I want to try to provide additional insight, particularly from the perspective of how travelers are vulnerable to crime. And that is exactly what Hannah was at the time. She was a traveler on her way somewhere when something happened. And that brings us to the number one clue we all missed. Now, investigators have focused on Hannah's movements to and from LAX and on public transport, and they should. But I think another critical area to look into is this: the fact that she spent a considerable amount of time at Taschen Books, where she stopped to charge her phone. And that was essentially her first stop. Now, that is number 2 in the Daily Mail's little graphic there. The first place she went to. And one would imagine she went there with all of her baggage, all of her luggage. And it may be that while charging her phone, that someone either got access to her phone or to her, or both. Bear in mind those Venmo payments happened on the same day that she visited Taschen Books, November 9th. This suggests that she was under the surveillance of someone for quite some time. And if her text on November 10th is legit about feeling scared, then she was slowly cottoning on to the fact that someone was trying to steal her money and identity. Well, we know they stole her money, and that process perhaps started at Taschen Books the previous day. The perpetrator then seemed to latch onto her, hoping he could get more from his mark. Now, prior to going missing, Kobayashi sent a message on November 10th mentioning feeling scared and that someone might be trying to steal her money and identity. She hasn't been heard from since, according to one report. It's also not nice to say, but if someone she encountered knew that Hannah was from faraway Hawaii and that she was headed to faraway New York, they may have figured it would take those who knew her a long time to catch up if anything happened. And now let's go into kind of a separate area, Hannah's world. I think if we want to understand what happened to Hannah, we need to at least try to walk a few steps in her psychological shoes. And I'm going to try and attempt to do that now. Do you mind if I share what I think is a similar story, not quite the same, but similar to Hannah's? Earlier this year, I also missed a flight. I was in Florida and had booked a flight from Orlando to Boulder, Florida, and I was using Frontier Airlines for the first time. Well, that flight got cancelled. And this messed me around in a big way, especially because I had returned a rental car early to catch the flight, and suddenly I didn't have a car either. And so suddenly I'm in disarray. I'm going to be moving around in ways that I didn't plan to. I've got my bags and so on to deal with. Also, I'm probably going to look flustered to those around me, and so I'm probably going to appear to be a perfect mark to someone who wants to take advantage. Now, in my case, this cancelled flight meant that I had to catch 2 additional Ubers in order to make a new flight on a different airline several hours later. There's a lot more to it, but what I remember was tweeting my displeasure to Frontier Airlines, and not long after that, I was contacted by an agent who sounded kind of Nigerian, who wanted my account numbers so I could be reimbursed on Venmo. I'm not going to take you through the details except to say it turned out to be a scam. Fortunately, I didn't lose any money, but I came pretty close. Why? Well, because I was emotional and I did want my money back, and I was feeling pretty unsettled about my original plans being disrupted. And make no mistake, the money I'd lost on the cancelled flight plus having to book a new flight really did put me in a kind of a very unsettled state. And so I can see Hannah being in a similar situation. The second thing to note is whenever someone is traveling long haul, and Hawaii to New York is about the longest haul you can do in America, it typically involves a lot more luggage than shorter, simpler trips. As soon as a long haul trip is disrupted, the new transit travel plans, well, they've got to be made and sort of made up on the spot. And often you are moving through a fabric that you're unfamiliar with. And while you are burdened with baggage. And so what this does is often reveals oneself as a tourist, and that can make one a target. Isn't that what happened here? You know, pickpockets, if you've traveled a lot, pickpockets are rife in Rome. A friend of mine I spoke to recently said she got pickpocketed right under the Eiffel Tower. And how do the pickpockets know who to target? Well, someone who obviously looks like a tourist. They look like they're not sure where they are. Now, in the same way that I revealed myself on X when I posted a complaint to Frontier Airlines, and someone tried to take advantage of that by pretending to offer a solution, Hannah may have revealed herself as well, simply by spending an unexpected amount of time on public transport. The fact that Hannah sent not 1 but 2 Venmo payments to different accounts also suggests she may have been scammed and controlled by more than one person, possibly even a syndicate. We know that Hannah also visited a bookstore which suggests that she was on the scammers' radar as early as that, given the one Venmo payment for an unknown amount was for reading. It's important that we know what these amounts were, and perhaps her bank can provide these details to authorities. The timing of these transactions on November 9th are also interesting. One was at 6:25 p.m. to Veronica Almendarez, and the second was made less than an hour later to someone called Jonathan Taylor, also for an undisclosed amount with a description only saying reading. Now, according to Hannah's sister Sydney, Hannah sent these payments to people whose names are not recognized by the family. What is their relationship with Hannah? Well, we don't know at this point. The lateness of her connecting flight is also cause for concern. Also, why did Hannah at 9:02 p.m., with 2 hours remaining for a flight to New York, why did she board a train near Inglewood and end up near Koreatown, far from the airport? We know that the aspiring photographer was last seen wearing a black hoodie and colorful sweatpants as she walked through LAX. She was also wearing a pair of headphones. Hannah's family seem to think Hannah is still alive and that she's no longer in California, but I'm not sure that's very realistic. Her aunt seems to think that she's been taken out of California. She says, "We are encouraging people from across the nation to keep an eye in case she's been taken outside California. We are looking at all possibilities: hotels, metros, bus and train stations." Now, I think it's more likely the original motive was financial. It would be a risk after committing this crime for the perpetrators to remain in the vicinity of the victim. But if Hannah thought someone was trying to steal her identity as well, this could suggest an ancillary motive, which is basically to take as much from her, a vulnerable target, as they could. I'm not going to take it further than that. I just want to say, just seeing Sydney sort of campaigning on behalf of her sister within the context that she's already lost her father, it really is heartbreaking. And our thoughts certainly are with that family. We will certainly keep you up to date on if there are any further developments. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.